The University of Alabama College of Communication and Information Sciences Hall of Fame has honored 31 outstanding individuals who have brought lasting fame to the state of Alabama. These men and women have been innovators and pioneers. They have informed, entertained, and inspired. They have been tireless advocates of the democratic arts, often at great personal cost. The inductees into the class of 2000 have displayed these characteristics too, in rich and fascinating lives. And yet there is another quality they share, an essential and indispensable one for communicators. They are entrepreneurs. They imagine, create, risk, and sometimes fail, only to succeed in dazzling and magnificent ways. It is their daring that pushes the boundaries of communication. All of us in the College of Communication and Information Sciences stand on the shoulders of giants. I sometimes paraphrase Sir Isaac Newton when I consider the accomplishments of those who have already been inducted into our Hall of Fame. Their work makes our way easier. Two of those giants helped shape and guide Jim Boone, chairman of the board and director of Boone Newspapers, Inc., a class of 2000 inductee. From his father, Buford Boone, the courageous Pulitzer Prize-winning editor and publisher of the Tuscaloosa News, he learned about courage, sacrifice, and how to run an independent and fair-minded newspaper. And he learned about the business of running a newspaper from one of its masters.
And Carmage Walls gave Jim the additional ingredient of you've got to produce the newspaper as a profit for its shareholders or it's not going to be in business. And as a result of that, the two combination of the both molded him into one of the best newspaper people that I've ever known.
Mr. Walls took a business interest in Jim Boone all of his life, and also I know took a deep personal interest in Jim Boone all of his life and his development as a man and as a newspaper man.
For 10 years, Boone held nearly every newspaper job there was as he worked for Walls, a publishing genius and a superb creator of acquisitions.
And one of Jim's first assignments, as I understand it, was to write a manual about how offset printing operated and how offset presses operated.
Though he worked for papers in Georgia, Texas, and Virginia, Jim Boone had deep roots in his hometown of Tuscaloosa. In 1968, he had the opportunity to return when he purchased controlling interest from his father in Tuscaloosa newspapers, which published the Tuscaloosa News. Today, Boone Newspapers owns and manages newspapers and shopping guides in 9 states. These newspapers are recognized as among the best managed in the industry.
He never gave up the idea of producing a great newspaper for his community and doing it at a reasonable profit for his company.
Jim Boone's commitment to the community goes beyond publishing a first-class newspaper. He advises, supports, and leads many organizations and institutions, including hospitals, schools, banks, professional associations, and charitable causes. In recognition of his outstanding service to the University of Alabama, he has received 2 of its highest honors, the Tutwiler Award and the honorary degree Doctor of Humane Letters.
So he is indeed a wonderful leader for our state, certainly for the profession and for this community. And we owe him a great deal for sharing so much of his success with the greater community.
It's just a small-town, family-owned newspaper. Every now and then, the publisher rankles the readers with what they think is an outlandish editorial. Occasionally, an advertiser takes umbrage with an investigative report that hits too close to home. It all might seem rather quaint. The Anniston Star is anything but.
I think that if anybody ever said that what they were doing was quaint, they just might all rise up and beat you to death. They're very serious about it.
The Anniston Star, founded by Colonel Harry Ayers, an inductee into the inaugural Hall of Fame. This New South paper would serve this model city of steel by afflicting the comfortable and comforting the afflicted.
Most people in the professions, have sufficient wherewithal to take care of themselves. It's the ordinary citizen that doesn't have the wherewithal. And it is the people who are bypassed or despised or looked down on because of race or sexual preference or some other characteristic. Somebody has to speak up for those in our society and to recognize that they're citizens too, and they have a right to believe that it's their country too. And so we do.
Brent Ayers has seen to it that the Anniston Star remains a paper committed to community journalism, something his father practiced before the term was invented. It is also committed to quality and excellence. Time magazine has called it one of the best small newspapers in the nation. The Columbia Journalism Review ranked it among the top 35 papers in the country. Ivy League graduates compete for reporting jobs there. Some local boys get hired too and learn community journalism from one of its giants.
He would come through the newsroom and everybody would, especially for those of us who were new, it'd be like, well, the Pope just walked through, and then as I got to know him later, we had some great long talks, and of course some people would say any talk with Brandy is going to be a long talk.
The Anniston Star reflects the qualities of its guiding light. It's daring, imaginative, articulate, passionate.
Creating a new and better society is not something that is done as a project with a certain deadline. I think that it's the daily struggle. If we can continue to keep our people and our leadership focused on what's good and what needs to be changed, I think that's the daily struggle. That's what you do every day when you get up and you go to work in a town that you care about as a newspaper person.
You might think the newspaper would be the family business. In fact, for 8 decades, the Shelton family has made the economic health of this community its business. Beginning with Barrett Shelton Sr., who was thrust into a leadership position with the untimely death of his father, the Decatur Daily has been a leader in a miraculous turnaround that saw an impoverished area become a center of manufacturing and commerce. Since 1984, Barrett Shelton Jr. has been the forceful, progressive publisher of the paper.
I think part of your responsibility is to help build the community. And if you don't try that, if your newspaper doesn't try it, well, then I think you are not living up to your responsibility. At the same time, you don't want to be go too far off, and while you're supporting the Chamber of Commerce and you're part of the Chamber of Commerce, you still got to pay attention to the rules of good journalism.
Barrett Sr. was always out in front. He was the leader. Barrett Jr. gets things done from behind the scenes a great many times.
Barrett is a publisher in the sense that if it's going on in the community and it's news, we're going to follow the story. And there are lots of times when his friends have called him and he said, "I'm sorry." And so we have no sacred cows.
Only 2 things can rival Barrett Shelton's devotion to Decatur.
Well, I think one very important thing about Barrett is his love for the University of Alabama. He was strongly dedicated to this institution. He wanted it to succeed. He wanted it to do well.
Besides his community and his alma mater, Shelton is devoted to his family. Here are scenes from his family album. The captions are pure Barrett.
mighty good business. It's a lot of fun. It's hard work, and it won't succeed without hard work.
On April 9, 1942, outnumbered American soldiers surrendered on Bataan. The infamous death march that followed was a milestone in the history of man's inhumanity to man.
This could have been the defining event in Bert Banks' life. Thousands of American servicemen died in captivity in the Philippines. It was an event so tragic, so horrible, that even though he survived the physical ordeal, no one would have faulted him for remaining its emotional prisoner.
I don't think I personally will ever forget that what I saw, the atrocities committed on Bataan and prisoners of the Japanese. Now, I mean this very sincerely. Nobody owes me nothing. The good Lord got me back. The men that made the supreme sacrifice are the men who deserve the accolades today.
Bert Bank is more than a survivor. He's resilient, optimistic, and full of life. Born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Bank had two careers. He served in the Alabama legislature for 12 years, was floor leader for 3 administrations, and was narrowly defeated by George McMillan in the race for lieutenant governor. He also owned and managed WTBC and WUOA Radio, which went on the air in Tuscaloosa in 1946. During his 37 years with this, the flagship station of Crimson Tide Sports, he hired and helped dozens of UA communication students.
He was a cantankerous, ornery old so-and-so that screamed and yelled at you. But he was also a guy who had a great sense of humor, taught us a lot. He always claims that he taught all of us who work for him everything we know, and he might be right.
When Mama called and Bear Bryant returned to coach at Alabama, one of his first stops was Bert Banks' office. They were longtime friends, and Bryant knew he needed a healthy football network to promote his program.
He said, "How many stations you have carrying the Alabama games last year, Whitworth's last year?" I said, 8. He said, 8. He jumped up and said, 8. I said, "You got to win for cities that want them." He says, "Crank it up, boy, I win." That was verbatim what he said.
Bert Banks' loyalty to his beloved alma mater is reflected in his devotion to its athletic department. He still serves as producer emeritus for Alabama football. In 46 years, he's missed only 3 games.
He's amazingly involved, and he's fun to be around. He's not bashful. He's never lost for words. And he has an opinion on everything, and I like that.
He's also served this university through the influence he's had on the many communication professionals who got their start at his radio station.
Some of them didn't think they was making too much. John Cochran said I didn't pay him but $1.50 an hour. I said I had to. It was minimum wage.
I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be speaking from the White House, not about politics, but about my old friend Bert Bank, and also to have a chance to get even with him. You know, Bert gave me my first job in commercial broadcasting. I was 17 years old, I needed a job, and he paid me minimum wage, $1.75 an hour. And he said I was overpaid at that. And you know what? He was absolutely right. I was pretty pathetic. But Bert taught me something I've never forgotten. He said, you must have respect for the audience listening in. You know, he said, the audience has a lot better things to do than just listen to you beat your gums. It was the most important lesson I ever learned in commercial broadcasting. So thank you, Bert. I'm so pleased you're being honored. After all, you deserve it. To me, at least, Bert Bank is the Bear Bryant of Alabama broadcasting.
Julius Talton is a small-town boy whose hard work, imagination, and respect for others made him a telecommunications innovator and visionary. What's even more remarkable is that he accomplished this in the small town he loves, Selma, Alabama.
He could live anywhere, I guess, and he has chosen Selma, and he's been supportive of all the good things in Selma. The library and the church and the Salvation Army and the Methodist Children's Home, and everything good, the school board. He's been there and has supported it not only with words but financially. Very generous man.
Talton worked his way through the University of Alabama, where he studied broadcasting, sales, and business. After serving 5 years as a pilot in the Strategic Air Command, he started in radio sales at WAPI in Birmingham. In 3 years, he was sales manager, but his dream was to own a station.
Well, Selma had a radio station for sale, and the price and the terms was something I could afford. And it just so happened it was the radio station where I had started in high school. So I got a special thrill out of that.
He's a people person, and he's very motivated and focused in what he tries to do, and he translates this to people who work with him and for him. I think he really uses a philosophy of people working with him as a matter of working for him.
But the experts said television was the best investment. Radio was going nowhere. The experts didn't know what kind of radio station Julius Talton would create. It was a sophisticated, professional organization. Even his announcers wore ties. He emphasized community service and local news.
A lot of stations didn't choose to do that because news was expensive. They couldn't make a lot of money with news, and it cost a lot of money to do it. But overall, it was a very good investment. It gave your station a lot of credibility, a lot of believability.
Talton was one of the first people to realize that it's not always location, location, location in telecommunications. He became an early leader in the booming mobile telephone and paging industries. He purchased additional radio stations and became involved in outdoor advertising. All the while, he remained active in his community and was exceedingly faithful to his alma mater, serving as National Alumni President, a member of the President's Cabinet, and on the Board of Visitors of the College of Communication and Information Sciences.
Julius Talton is an outstanding human being in every respect. Has been a tremendous citizen, giving to his community and to his state. Has a wonderful family, has been a fine father and grandfather, an outstanding businessman, and in my particular case, a terrific mentor. Julius is one of the good guys.
Emory Cunningham traveled the world and felt at home wherever he was. Perhaps that's because he shared so much of his home, the South, with the rest of the world through his incredibly successful magazine, Southern Living.
We were perceived as a backward part of the country and had very little to offer other sections of the country. And Southern Living, year by year, helped to change that perception, to change that image by emphasizing the good things about the South.
The son of a farmer and teacher, Cunningham was raised in the country northwest of Birmingham. He always felt most comfortable in the woods, the water, the fields and farms of his native land. But he came to know there was more to the South. After graduating from Auburn and serving as a Navy pilot in World War II, Cunningham became a record-breaking salesman for Progressive Farmer, the South's leading farm magazine. He crisscrossed the South dozens of times and eventually became the magazine's publisher. He realized that his homeland was also a place of steel mills and skyscrapers, of suburban homes with shady yards and vegetable gardens. In the mid-'60s, he dreamed of a new magazine that would reflect his vision of the South.
When probably all the business plans and the idea for Southern Living started is that Emory, as he was putting numbers together, probably would have projected the very best that Southern Living could have ever done. Maybe would have achieved a circulation of a little over 1 million subscribers across the South. Today it has 2.5 million, and it's you can find it in every household, in every community, in every town, in every city, in the states that it serves.
Southern Living remains a publishing phenomenon. On its 10th anniversary, the United States magazine publishers named Cunningham Publisher of the Year. His company became the world's largest regional publisher.
I think he believed very much that this was a business and it should be a successful business, which he certainly drove it to be. But it also, after the business side, it was something that Southerners could be very proud of.
Still, he was not consumed by his professional life. Emory Cunningham was devoted to his community, state, and profession. He was a great friend to higher education, serving on Auburn's Board of Trustees and the President's Cabinet at the University of Alabama. He was a devoted ecologist before others knew what the word meant. Above all, he loved people, his family, his co-workers, and his neighbors, everyone who happened to read Southern Living.
And Emory also had a respect for every individual that he always came in contact with, and I have witnessed that firsthand. It did not matter what you did or who you were, he was always able to find something important about you.
Emory Cunningham had the imagination that enabled him to connect readers and writers in a way that no other magazine publisher had been able to do. Everyone we honor in the 2000 Hall of Fame has worked to make connections. Because of them, we are better educated and better informed. We know more about our neighbors next door and those around the world. They have fostered the vigorous and thoughtful exchange of ideas. They have made it easier for us to communicate. And through their commitment to work, family, and community, they have championed the democratic arts.